Hello and welcome to VMware 2021. Today we'll be presenting to you the session Innovate with VMware Cloud and how to build a powerful multi-cloud environment. I'm Caio Oliveira, Principal Multi-Cloud Architect from the Multi-Cloud and Architecture and Strategy team.
And my name's Adam Bohle. I'm also a Principal Multi-Cloud Architect with Caio in the Multi-Cloud Architecture and Strategy team of VMware.
Thank you, Adam. So please take a closer look to the disclaimer. And to start with the session, this is a joint effort from not only myself and Adam. Here I'd like to highlight a few persons like Daniel Persson, John Marone, Satya, Sean, Timo, and all the product management and hyperscaler specialists at VMware that contribute with this effort that we have inside here. And the main purpose of this environment is really to drive and help all of our customers and partner opportunities. And this could be different stuff, could be like a proof of technology, the validation of a specific solution, to do a kind of a design review, and also to help things like accelerate a roadmap or validate a few items with our product management teams. And another important and really I'd like to highlight that regarding the integration that's possible for us to do with all our current offerings and all the native public cloud services. We have also a joint work with our cloud incubation team. And last but not least, one of the main objectives is to really create technical IP and really help and drive the pre-sales and community with posts, videos, and of course, this session is also something that this lab will be using. For you to understand, this is a brief overview of our lab. What we have here is actually 3 hosts in each of our main offerings. So we have 3 hosts at VMware Cloud on AWS. We have 3 hosts at GCV, Google Cloud VMware Engine, 3 hosts at AVS, 3 hosts at Oracle Cloud VMware Solutions as well. And we have all that connected to on-prem environment. So we pretty much can test everything and our solutions that we have today. And just for you to understand, this is kind of our, we promise that will be a lot of demos into this session. So the first one is really not a really exciting one, but actually to present to you the importance of having a consistent infrastructure through all of those clouds. So here, I'm opening the vCenter that we have at VMware Cloud on AWS, right? So the same experience that you have on-prem, you're going to have on VMware Cloud on AWS. As I mentioned, we have 3 hosts here. So this is are based out of the Amazon EC2 i3 Metal instance. And the same experience that we have here at VMware Cloud on AWS, we're going to have as well at AVS, so Azure VMware Solution. So we have here, again, another SDDC with 3 bare metal hosts, and GCV the same. So Google Cloud VMware Engine, a lot of words to decorate. And here we have GCV as well. So we have a lot of virtual machines over there, a lot of power that we can use for all the objectives that I mentioned to you. And last but not least, again, we have our SDDC, our environment on Oracle Cloud VMware Engine, right? So this is the powerful of our, and one of the main important things about our multi-cloud strategy, to have this consistent infrastructure independent of the cloud. So with that, you can have your application in the most suitable place for them. And with that, Adam, it's up to you now to do some fancy demo for our audience.
Thank you, Caio. I think we were going to go through a couple more slides though, before we jump into that.
Oh, perfect. So let me share again here my screen. Yep.
Okay, so if we go to the next slide. Okay, so thank you, everyone. So as Caio mentioned, we're going to go through a demo here. Just to give you some context first before we go through the demo, I'm just going to highlight that for the purposes of this demo, we're going to use VMware Cloud on AWS, which we have running in our US West 2 or Oregon region. And then we have running in the Azure Cloud in East US, our Azure VMware Solution environment. Connected into these environments, we're using the VMware Cloud Management Suite or vRealize Cloud. We're going to use a couple of components within that solution. One we're going to use is vRealize Operations Cloud. We just click through Caio, we can see that that connects into our different environments. So we're going to show how that works. And then once we're done with that, we're going to go through and we're going to look at our vRealize Cloud Assembly solution. And what we're going to do with vRealize Cloud Assembly is we're essentially going to create an application. We have an application blueprint defined in vRealize Cloud Assembly. We're going to use that to provision that application across to Azure VMware Solution, which remember is running in the East US region for Azure Cloud. We're then going to use some technology called Hybrid Cloud Extension to essentially then take that application and extract it from Azure VMware Solution, again, running in Microsoft Azure, and move that application across to VMware Cloud on AWS. And we're going to show that migration across the continental United States without any downtime to the application and no disruption to services for the user. So we'll get into doing that first. And this map here just kind of shows you what we're doing here. We have a network extension from Azure VMware Solution across to VMware Cloud on AWS. And we're going to show this migration with no refactoring, no replatforming of the application or virtual machine, because the underlying hypervisor is the VMware vSphere platform that we all know and love. So we can really create this powerful migration and ease of migration story for customers. So with that, I'll just go through and show you a video that we have of that migration. Okay. Now, the reason we put this into a video is so that we can speed up through certain parts of the migration process. But here you can see I'm in the Microsoft Azure portal. I have the Azure VMware Solution environment here. You can manage your SDDC within the Azure Cloud portal as if it was a first-party offering from Microsoft, which it is, and it allows you to have that functionality straight from the Azure Resource Manager portal. From here, I have my ability to connect to my vCenter. We just saw the vCenter that Caio showed, and here I can now start administering my environment. So we can see here, this is running in East US AVS within the Azure Cloud infrastructure. Now, if I come across to my Cloud Assembly environment here, we can see that I'm able to design out blueprints that I can provision out to my various different environments. The application that I'm going to provision here is a cloud agnostic blueprint, so I could deploy this blueprint to any of our cloud environments or native environments that I wanted to use. Credit to Vincent Bioc from our French VMware team for creating this demo application that we're going to use here. So we're just going to go through the process of deploying this directly from Cloud Assembly. We could obviously put this into Service Broker and wrap approvals and processes around it if we wanted to, but I'm going to select that I just want to deploy it to AVS here in this case, pass across some information, username and password data that's required. What's going to happen here is this blueprint is now going to deploy into Azure VMware Solution. You can see I have this Tito application folder with nothing in it. We've sped up a couple of points here within the demo just for the sake of time. We should see within this Tito application folder, our application starts to deploy. So it deploys the database component of this application, and then it will go forward and deploy the web component of this application. While that's happening, I'll come across into the VMware Cloud on AWS portal. It's a separate portal, obviously, and I'm able to come in and start administering my VMware Cloud on AWS SDDC environment that's running in that Oregon AWS region. You can see here I have access to the environment and can manage it at this point. I can also come in from here and connect into that vCenter environment. Now, you can see here within this environment, I have a VMC migration folder. No virtual machines in that folder at the moment, but we're going to populate that with our application in a minute. Now, you'll see here that I have already deployed a version of this application in the Tito application post folder. If I take the IP address of the front end of that application, I can come in, go to my web portal, paste that in, append the index.php on the end of that IP address, and then I'm able to access that application. This is a very basic application. It's a PHP front end with a MySQL backend, and essentially uses the Google Maps API to be able to find out your daily commute to work time. In the time of COVID, it's not an application that has aged well. But I've decided I want to now move this application from Azure VMware Solution to VMware Cloud on AWS. Here I can come into the HCX plugin. I can look at the site pairings I have. We have a lot of site pairings here to the various different cloud offerings. But we're going to focus on this connection that we have to VMware Cloud on AWS. To VMware Cloud on AWS, we have a network extension. You can see here all of our different network extensions that we have in place. And this gives us the capability to be able to move a virtual machine without any disruption for our users, and allows us to be able to continue the use of that application as it moves over, in this case, a live vMotion. So HCX test is extended across the VMware Cloud on AWS from Azure VMware Solution. Here I can come into the migration portal view here. I've got my source, which is in this case Azure VMware Solution. I select my target SDDC that I want to migrate to. This is VMware Cloud on AWS. And then in this portal, I can see my source inventory of my catalog within Azure VMware Solution. Within that Tito application post folder, I can select the components of my application, those two virtual machines, and I can specify out some details that I need to provide for HCX to be able to land this workload at the target location. So I'll specify a resource pool. I'll specify that VMC migration folder. Remember, we have that on the target VMC side with nothing in it at the moment. I'll come back to Azure VMware Solution and say that's where I want to place my workloads. I select the storage that I want to use, and I select the migration profile. For the purposes of this demo, we'll do a vMotion. With a vMotion migration, we have no downtime to the application. We do require that extended network to be in place. We need to keep in mind that this is a serial operation. We have one vMotion at a time with this scenario. I can come into the tracking part view for HCX, and I can now see in real time the migration of those virtual machines across to the target location. I can come in here and see various events and so forth. And now I can come back to my application. I'll just go through and just show that we can ping this application or ping this virtual machine that's hosting the front end of this application, and just show that we have connectivity to this application. You can see here I can ping the virtual machine very easily from my desktop. I come back over to the HCX portal here. We can just get a view of what's happening. This will take a few minutes to move across. But I think what's important to notice is while this application is happening from the East US coast across to the West US coast, we can still use this application. For our users, there is no disruption to service. If I want to find out the journey time from Buckingham Palace to 10 Downing Street in the UK for the Queen going to see the Prime Minister in the UK, then I can see that. I can use this application as if nothing was happening. This migration is happening. We can see here that when I'm pinging the virtual machine, I do lose a couple of pings, but the migration of the virtual machine, remember, has traveled a few thousand miles across the US. But because this application isn't super sensitive to IPs dropping, or IP packet drops, I should say, we can still carry on using this application. From a user perspective, there's no disruption to service. But if we come back over to the HCX portal, we can see here the events around the HCX migration happening. We can see the progress of what's happening and get that feedback that our migration is occurring. We should see in a minute that the migration of the machine finishes. You can see here that front end machine has already moved across. And we can now see that the IP address hasn't changed because it's moved across that layer 2 extended network, which is defined out there in the network adapter view. We click refresh a couple more times. We can see here that the front end machine migration has happened. So our PHP front end for this application has moved across. It's still working. It's still accessible. If I look at the back end IP here, so 10.121.10.185, that's still going to be sitting in Azure VMware Solution at the moment. But we can see here, I want to check the journey times across the VMware campus in Palo Alto. It still works. And this is with the front end of the application now moved across to VMware Cloud and AWS. And the database component is still in the process of being moved. As you can see here, the relocation task is still in process. I can still access the application. It's still working to all intents and purposes. You see here, I'll just refresh the front end page. It refreshes absolutely fine. So for my end users, this is perfectly fine. And again, I'll just go to the back end IP this time, ping the IP. We can see I can still connect to that database virtual machine as it moves across. So we can see here we're 71% complete. I can look at the various events that are happening for that migration. If we come across to the VMware Cloud and AWS vCenter portal, we should see our database VM turn up very, very shortly. And voila, there's our database VM that's arrived safe and sound at our target location with no changes to the underlying virtual machine, no changes to the application. HCX will just go through some cleanup processes here, and then it will come up saying migration complete. And once again, my migration is working fine. The Queen now wants to go back from 10 Downing Street to Buckingham Palace. She can come in and see that information, but she's now doing that from an application that's hosted within VMware Cloud on AWS. Versus Azure VMware Solution, which is what would have been used at the start of this demo process. So HCX will finish off now. This is now, to all intents and purposes, our virtual machine, or two virtual machines, sorry, hosting our application, which is made up of a PHP front end with a MySQL backend, moved across a layer 2 extended network from Azure VMware Solution across to VMware Cloud on AWS. If we look at our VM inventory view for Azure VMware Solution here, we can see that Tito application post VM folder is now empty. Those virtual machines have been evacuated across and now sit within VMC, the VMC migration folder, on Azure, on VMware Cloud on AWS. Okay. And we can see now that I still have connectivity across to the front end of this virtual machine, so I can ping the 186 address, which is the front end of the application, and 185 being the back end. This is all accessible over that layer 2 extended network. Okay, so with that, I will stop sharing my screen there. Now, that was our automated deployment of an application and a movement of that application across from one hyperscale cloud provider across to another one with no disruption to service. But one thing that a lot of the customers that myself and Caio work with, one of the things that they're interested in as part of the VMware Cloud journey and the ability to be able to use these different hyperscaler cloud providers to be able to offer a consistent infrastructure platform is the ability to be able to use those platforms but still have a consistent operations experience when they're utilizing these environments. So this comes back to the slide that I showed earlier, where we had vRealize Operations Cloud able to connect into all of these different environments. Now, this should seem obvious, but because these environments within Azure and within AWS are hosting a vSphere environment with a vCenter control plane, with a vCenter API, we're still able to use the same tools and processes, people and skills that we operate in our on-premise environment to be able to manage and administer the cloud-based environments that we're consuming as well. So in this case, I've got vRealize Operations Cloud. I have endpoints into my vCenter environment within AVS, my vCenter environment within GCVE, my vCenter environment into my on-premise environment. vRealize Cloud Operations gives us the capability to be able to connect into native cloud offerings such as AWS. If I wanted to add in native Microsoft Azure, I would be able to come in and be able to establish that endpoint if I wanted to as well. But within this environment, I'm also able to connect into that VMware Cloud on AWS vCenter environment that I have here. Now, because I'm able to establish these connections in, I'm able to now administer this environment, which is spanning multiple public clouds across multiple different providers in exactly the same way as if I was managing my on-premise environment. So I can come in, my same people that I have running my on-premise environment and are troubleshooting and monitoring potential issues that I have in my on-premise environment are now able to come in and administer the environment within VMware Cloud on AWS. Their view of the world doesn't change at all. They're still able to operate, maintain, secure, and run that critical infrastructure in exactly the same way as if they were running an on-premise vSphere environment. It really makes no odds as to the fact that it's running in AWS or Azure or Google. All of that is abstracted away, and all of, the operator sees is SDDC environments that they can manage through their portals here, exactly the same way as if they were running their workloads on-premise. And that's, to all intents and purposes, the conclusion of our demo there. So, Caio, if I can just hand it back to you just to finish things off.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Adam. Let me just share here my screen. So, hope you all appreciated our session, and definitely please take your survey. We incorporate everything that you put it there, so it'll be important for us to improve even further our demos and our presentations. And well, thank you very much. Feel free to reach out us on your preferred social media or contact us directly. Thank you.